Ask Dan Schneider. I hope I'm pronouncing this name correctly, but I got an email from Rena Sitharopoulos. I think that's how you would pronounce it, with an Scyth, Sith, or maybe it's Scytheropoulos. Anyway, Rena asks me, Dan, I know that there's a new Star Trek that's coming out next year on CBS. What do you think of it? And what do you think of all of the Star Trek shows before? Which do you think was the best and which do you think was the worst? Well, thank you for the question, Reen. And again, I hope I got your name correctly. I've been a Star Trek fan, but I'm not one of those types that goes to the conventions. As far as this new Star Trek, yes, I've written about Star Trek in the past a number of times. You know, I think I've read it's going to be an anthology series that's going to be taking place, or like every season of it is going to be in a different era. I think they can fill in gaps in the history. I hope what they do is go 400 or 500 years past whatever the last farthest date was. It's 300 or 400 years in the future. Let's go to the year 3000. Let's have the Federation now be basically almost the whole galaxy, and let's have them go to other galaxies, not just warping to between stars at a high speed, but between galaxies. That's the natural progression. As far as the past shows, and also, but let me say, I hope that they also go and have more realistic aliens, not just these humanoids with weird stuff. But anyway, as far as which were the best series, the original show is obviously the best. It had the best triad of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. No other Star Trek show came close. They had the highest number of good shows per episode. I think they did 75, 79 episodes, and they probably had, 20, 25 really good episodes. The rest of the shows, I don't think even had as many good episodes as that had. But my second choice would actually be the animated show, the cartoon series in the early 70s. This was a lot of recycled scripts. They were pared down to only half an hour, but a couple of years ago I watched the 20 or 25 episodes that were on, I believe it was Netflix, and I was surprised at how well written they were. There's probably never been a cartoon as good. Around the same time they had an animated version of Planet of the Apes, which was not nearly as good as the Star Trek show. So the original show, and then basically its sequel series, which was the cartoon show, featuring the voices of many of the same actors. Third would be Star Trek Voyager, and I think they had the best cast. You had Kate Mulgrew, you had the Seven of Nine babe, you had Bald Doctor, the hologram doctor, and they had probably the least annoying secondary characters. They were also, going back to the original premise of the show, is exploring the unknown. So I think that was probably the second best show, and it had probably the next highest number of good episodes. Third or fourth would be, I guess, a tie between Deep Space Nine and Star Trek The Next Generation. The first 3 seasons of both shows were slow and not particularly productive. What Next Generation had going for it was basically Patrick Stewart and Brent Spiner, along with every so often the fellow who played Worf, Michael Dorn, would do well. The rest was shit, including Wesley Crusher. They had probably the best individual episode, The Inner Light, the one where Picard lives a lifetime in 20 or 25 minutes when he's being probed by an alien probe, and he comes back and he grips that flute so dramatically. Deep Space Nine also had a shit first 3 years. They had 2 good characters in Quark and Odo. The captain went a little bonkers, just like apparently the guy who played him in real life did. So that one is right there with The Next Generation. The last couple of years when they had an interstellar war with the Dominion probably maybe gives, I think, a little bit of a push to Deep Space Nine over Star Trek The Next Generation. There were good characters. The Cardassian characters of Garrick and some of the other people were really good, and The Next Generation didn't really have that in terms of continuing characters. And the least was Enterprise, and probably the less said about that, the best. So if I were to rank the Star Trek shows, the first show, just plain old Star Trek, number 1. Star Trek the cartoon, number 2. Voyager, number 3. Deep Space Nine, number 4. The Next Generation, number 5. And Enterprise, number 6. this new show, who knows? I know I won't be watching it because I don't have cable and I'm not going to be able to download it or whatnot. It's going to be on not CBS itself, but one of CBS's platforms. So again, we're not looking for big audiences here. We're dividing the country into micro audiences. Hopefully it will be better than Enterprise was and better than the J.J. Abrams horror show films, the terrible, terrible J.J. Abrams films. Thank you again for the question.